Yes, I can't see anybody on. I'm not seeing it at all. No, not at all. Hello, everybody. I'm working with this new technology. I'm not seeing you, but I gather you can see me. My Facebook page is actually on this instrument that I'm using, so I don't have a split screen. Um, anyway, I am hoping that you are hearing me clearly and you're having a good afternoon. I'm still trying to see if I can pull up. I don't have my Facebook page on my phone. And to get it on now, it's going to take a little while, but I hope I can um, fix this problem so I can see who is on and what comments have been made. All right, we're waiting for our very important guest to join us this evening. As you all know, Mariame Robinson, I think it's McIntoch Robinson, is going to be our special guest today as we look at a very topical issue that we are now faced with or burdened with. Okay, let me see what's the problem. Hello? Yes. You're in, you're in backstage? I'm not seeing you as yet. Okay, all right. Well, stay on then. All right, that was my guess, indicating that she can see me. She's on backstage, and I'm going to ask our production people to bring her into the studio so at least I can see her while I try to sort out the problem with this feed. Ah, good. Hi, Mariam.
Hello, afternoon or evening.
Yes, it's
Good to see
evening
you.
time now. This is my regular Friday evening live where we
Excellent.
wrap with lots of people. Now, I can't see from my monitor who is on.
Okay.
Normally, I can tell. Normally, I can see the comments and respond. But this evening, what they say about technology. But I have already gotten feedback that people are seeing us.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
I'm hoping that the production crew will send to me some of the comments so that we
Yeah.
can respond. But for the time being, we just have to pretend that it's just you and me.
Yeah, that's how it feels. It's just you and me
Yes,
chatting.
but can you imagine? I tell you, these lives go all over the world. We have people
Yeah,
from England, Canada, the US, and even
fantastic.
elsewhere. From time to time, I get comments from them. But it is so strange that we can have this use of technology, just like those TV. That's just like CNN or TV
Mm-hmm.
today, and we are able
Absolutely.
to reach anybody in the globe. So more power to technology.
Absolutely.
Thanks. We are far in the new year, but happy new year to you.
Ah, thank you. It got off to a slow start for me. I was sick, but I'm much better now. So
Oh
giving thanks.
no,
So
not
really
COVID,
bad
not
cold.
COVID again though.
Not COVID, it was negative, but really bad cold.
Oh, sorry to hear that.
So
Sorry to hear that.
yeah, no,
But
I'm
you know,
fine now.
COVID eventually is going to become a very bad cold,
Bad
like the
cold.
flu.
Yes.
So we just have to live with it. And I tell you, I am certain that I must have gotten it sometime. But every time I test,
No,
negative.
it's
So
negative. Yeah.
yes, and I've done
Yeah.
my vaccination, and I'm toying with the idea of doing a second booster. With,
Okay.
yeah.
Good.
So we have you down not for the company that we are familiar with, but a new enterprise. So probably we could start by you telling us a little bit about what are you doing now?
Sure. So hello to you again. Thank you for having me, Philip, and to your listeners or viewers, I should say.
Yes.
So I was the former president of and CEO of First Global Bank.
Yes.
That's a bank here in Jamaica, owned by the Grace Kennedy Group, so a subsidiary of GK, and I was running that bank for the last just over 6 years.
Yes.
We took the bank through transformation and did quite a lot of innovation there as well. We have a very strong team. Anyhow, so I've now moved on last summer. Bank was in steady state, so I felt very comfortable where it was, and an opportunity came up to join a financial technology firm. We refer to it as a fintech, a global fintech company. So I left the bank in July and joined them in August.
Yes.
And they're based out of Houston, but I'm here in Jamaica and I do a lot of traveling. Let's just say that.
Yes.
It's interesting because it's still the pain point of trying to bring more access to the financial services sector for all, so that global citizens can live a better life. And the view that Qenta, the name of the company is Qenta, Qenta. The view that Qenta takes is much more kind of global. I mean, I was very focused on Jamaica and very grateful for my experience in the financial services sector here because it's so similar in a number of markets. And so at Qenta, our mandate, we're operational in the US, but our mandate over the next year is to enter 5 new markets: Ghana, Peru, India, Pakistan, and Palau. And so learning those markets and seeing how similar they are to Jamaica and just the great work that the central banks around the world are doing has been fascinating and one of the elements of interest so far in my role.
But tell me something. So it's a fintech company. So do you perform a role akin to like a clearinghouse? Where do you interact with cash, or is just online facility?
Yeah, such a great question, because one thing about fintech I've realized it's such a diverse, wide, broad industry, and you can play in many different areas within that sector, which is really an adjacent move from financial services. So fintech is a lot like traditional financial services from the perspective of, as you onboard customers, we still go through tiered KYC. You have to do monitoring as you go. So you still have to have robust AML and CFT frameworks that you're operating.
By the way, Mariame, well, some people are listening to you and they don't know a thing about know your customer. So when you use those acronyms, you could just spell them out for me.
Yes, sorry. So with the fintechs, as with financial services, and we all interact with this, when we're being onboarded, they always talk about internally KYC, know your customer. So we all use these KYC, know your customer procedures or processes to onboard customers into the ecosystem. And then once you're in with the institution, whether it's a fintech, a bank, insurance company, etc., we monitor and keep up with how you're doing and your transactions.
And of course, when you say onboard, it just means that you're bringing on board new customers, new people.
Yes, we're starting a new relationship. So onboard, we mean starting a new relationship.
Wow, these fancy terms nowadays.
Yes. No, good point. Thank you for that. Yeah, so that's where it's similar. Where it's different, though, is that we're using technology to drive innovation. So once you have a culture of excellence around compliance and you really understand why we do what we do from a compliance standpoint, then the sky's the limit. And so it's using technology to drive the innovation to really address these pain points. And again, for us, we focus on, I'll tell you 2 pain points that I certainly can relate to living here in Jamaica. One is when you are an SME and you have a client, say in the US. Let's say you do consulting services and you may offer, maybe it's 100 US for 30 minutes. I'm just, giving an example. For you to get paid by the person in the US, if you're living in Jamaica and you don't have a bank account overseas, can be very costly because they'll have to send you a wire, or they would have to ideally use a fintech solution, and the fintech platform or solution ideally would be much lower cost than the wire or using a remittance company like a Western Union or MoneyGram and so forth. So that's one pain point that we're looking at, which is movement of funds across borders to, again, allow people to be able to generate and then grow their business.
Well, the purpose of this discussion today
Yeah.
was to talk about some of the current situations affecting people's hard-earned dollars and
Yes.
but having mentioned fintech, and I really am very interested because we've heard about back office support, we've heard about BPOs, and there are so many of these operations now that, well, your head office is in Texas, but you're here in Jamaica.
Yes.
So
Yes.
you have a physical presence somewhere,
Yes. We're actually in 17 countries.
70 physically, uh,
With team members,
team
but
members.
we serve our clients virtually or remotely or globally. So
But tell
there's
me
no
something.
one. Mhm.
But who regulates you? We're
Aha.
going to
So
talk about regulations just now, but I want to know if
yes.
you are going to be properly regulated.
Yes. So regulations is very locally driven. So it's very hard. If I wanted to start up a fintech in Jamaica and launch an app, the way it works now is I have to partner with a deposit taking institution, so a bank, and then I go into what the Bank of Jamaica calls a sandbox. And that's actually a very innovative way to bring new products to market quicker. The BOJ implemented this in the last 5 years. It means you can put your new product out into the market while the BOJ is assessing it until they give you the full green light to go full scale. And so that whole, who regulates you? If you're sitting in Jamaica, Bank of Jamaica. In the US right now, we're regulated by the feds there. That's who regulates us. The license that we use or get the no objection to not need, depending on what asset we're, because we
Yeah.
do asset digitization, is the money transmission license. So you have money transmission license, you have broker dealer license, all depends on what part of the financial ecosystem you're playing in. So when you go into Ghana, Bank of Ghana, and then they have a SEC equivalent there. We are also, when you go into Peru, fun fact, there is the central bank in Peru, but they don't look at digital assets. So it's unregulated in Peru. And so that gives us pause because while you can still enter that market on the digital plane, it
Yeah.
means that regulations will come and it can alter your business. So when you're going
Wow.
into financial services, which is highly regulated, it's always good to enter markets where the regulation is clear. And so in Jamaica, when they talk about, say, cryptocurrencies, for example, which
Right.
I'm not a fan of, I'm sorry, listeners, but
Yeah.
I'm not for varying reasons. It is not regulated per se in Jamaica with specifics. However, the Bank of Jamaica has commented about the risks, and so it is not supported from a regulation standpoint in Jamaica. That may change over time. So to answer your question, it's very
Yeah.
locally specific.
Yeah. All right. So I want to find out because I have some people from East Kingston who watch this program and they probably will tune in
Hello.
later. Well, yeah, and they'll see you, but they'll tune in later because many of them are hustling home from work and so on.
Yeah.
But what you do, how it relates to them, because it just sounds like some high-tech business with people with
Yeah.
millions and millions of dollars to deal with.
Sorry.
No,
Yes,
ma'am.
and I'm going to speak from a industry standpoint now because there are other companies right here in Jamaica doing
Yeah.
fintech, if you will. So we have NCB, we have Grace Kennedy, we have Scotiabank. There are a number of different entities in the financial services sector moving in this direction. So why does it matter? So the biggest thing is the cost, right? The cost to you of interacting with a financial institution. So people talk about, boy, when I go to the bank, they have so much fees. And the truth is, if you go more to the digital channels, and I'll talk a little bit about what the risks might be there and why people don't move more quickly there. But if you move from a cash way of operating kind of your day-to-day life to a digital channel that is convenient and really resembles cash, so it means everybody accepts it. I can always draw on it. There's a clear value, right? So your phone has to be like cash. Once you do that, there is essentially no cost to you or very limited low fees. And that's what Jamaica is going for. That's what the financial services sector is going for when you see them putting out CBDC, which is the central bank digital currency. When you see NCB coming out with Link and others are following, I think JN also just approved that they're going in with CBDC and having an app as well. What the app is, Philip and viewers, is a way for you to access whatever that balance is and a way for you to transact. So the app allows you to transact. So that's like if you have your phone and you go to the app store and you download a game. In this case, you download a fintech app, if you will, or a financial services app, and it allows you to do transactions. So again, when you say, but why does this matter? This really matters when the people that you do business with, the pan chicken man, like, so whoever you're buying things from, topping up your phone credit, etc., when they start accepting your app as a way of transmitting money, right? So it is as if it's a cash. That is when it matters. And that's the journey that we're on. So we're not there yet, but that's the vision of where we're trying to go. And why it matters to you, because it's low cost. You don't have to go to the ATM and withdraw money to then have the cash, to then use the cash. And as you use the cash, there's a security of carrying the cash. There's a cash depreciating over time. I mean, there's a lot of costs associated with just cash.
Well, all right. First of all, I just got a message that somebody spotted a gentleman behind you just now, and they wanted to hail him up. From Julian Robinson. So tell him that he mustn't interfere with our dialogue, because people know him from behind and from.
All right, here the comrades. I was trying to be inconspicuous.
I didn't even know he was here.
But Mariame, I want
Yes.
to take it back to something, and I'm so sorry that we have strayed a little bit. But
No, that's fine.
you know, I'm coming to the realization that very soon I will not be able to use cash when I go to purchase anything at all. I was traveling recently, and it's as if when people see you take out cash now, they look up on you as if you must be some dealer.
Yeah, it's true.
Yes.
Why you need cash?
There is that reality now, and I think our people are not yet in tune with that reality. Isn't it so?
Yes. Yes, it is. And I heard a statistic. I was on a panel in December last month at Tech Beach Retreat, and the head of Visa for the Latin America and the Caribbean was there. And we were talking about payment, just payment infrastructure and ways of, where the world is moving to. And the grim reality, though, I will say, is that in terms of transactions and how we operate, over 90% of transactions are still cash. So in Jamaica and a number of emerging markets are there. And what you're describing, which is where we're trying to eventually go and where we will go as a world, is where cash becomes just kind of a strange thing to have. I do take the point, though, why, as an economy, practically it makes sense to have cash. A lot of times what we earn is what we spend. So wherever we're spending what we're earning, because we don't have the ability to necessarily save a lot for a long time, we need to ensure that those merchants or those persons we're doing business with, or the individuals that we have to pay money to, that they can take the cash through that digital format, or what we like to say is the digital rail, if you will.
Yeah.
So I think that's where we're going to go, but we're not quite there yet. And I really think one of the positive signs I will say is first of all, you have the central bank, which has been doing a lot of work on communicating what they do and why they do it. You have these little sound bites in the paper and on Twitter and social media, right? So you have the central bank that is trying to enable and push a digital environment. You have the government that also has their digital strategy and where they're trying to take the country. And then you have players in the private sector, in the financial services sector, willing to invest, and it's a lot of investment. Now that I'm in the fintech industry, I really shout out to the companies doing all the work. I was at FGB. We're doing the same with our credit card. It's really good to partner with a fintech, let them take the risk and you revenue share. So that's just a little shout out. But you have private sector companies willing to invest to make this easier for us, the general population, to be able to transact digitally. So it's coming. And the thing about how we are is, unless it's as convenient or more, we're not going to change. So we're going to have to make the case. I keep going between we. The private sector companies are going to have to make the case to consumers to use their phone and convince them that it is secure, that it's not unsafe, and that it gives them the same convenience but lower cost. And that there is a value proposition.
I'm going to book you from now, because we have to come back to talk a little bit about this, about cryptocurrency and why them lock up the man recently in the US.
Oh yeah, I could talk about. I mean, that's risk management. I mean, that's huge.
So we're going to come back to talk about that. But
sure.
My viewers, they heard that you were coming on, I've been getting some text messages and so on. And many of them are saying, MP, why do I need to put my money in the bank? Because apart from the high fees, if I had my money under my mattress, nobody can come there and take it away. Uh, from time to time, they see their accounts going down, and they just have this perception that somebody is stealing from them. And now them hear Usain Bolt, our
Yeah.
international track athlete, a legend, a hero, losing 12 point odd million US, over $1 billion Jamaican dollars. And so people are very, very skeptical now, very, very upset, and they want to hear what you have to say to them about storing their money under their mattresses.
Yes, yes. So first of all, what's happened with Hussein is just a tragedy. There's always opportunity in every tragedy. So we will come out to this better on the other side, and hopefully everybody will be repaid and made whole out of this very unfortunate incident that has happened.
By the way, not to cut you, but I'm so happy the opposition spokesman on finance is learning on this program, because we will have to fix the problem.
He's gone now, but yes.
He's gone.
Yeah, he's not in the room anymore. You guys ran him out. A joke. But yeah, so yeah, it's a very unfortunate incident, right? And what I would say is, when it comes to, so as we think about kind of how we live our lifestyles, when we earn money, there is the opportunity to have a little bit of surplus. That's what we're pushing for. And we save that surplus for a rainy day. So that is money that you don't want to necessarily invest in something long term, or you just need that cash for when there's an emergency, like I have to go to the hospital and do an x-ray on my chest because I was having some pains. You need that stash to be able to live life and not have that stress, right? And so that is savings. That's fundamentally savings. So the question becomes, where do I save my little bit of surplus that builds up over time? Where do I put it? Now, if it's a little bit of surplus that you're constantly just digging into and you want to have it under your mattress, practically speaking, okay, you could have it under your mattress. Now, in my household, if you have it under my mattress, my son will find it. But if you have a secure place at your house, okay, right? So I don't want to just say don't do it. But what we're striving for as a people is that the little bit of surplus that we get, we're building on it over time. Even as savings, we're building on it over time. And so the bank is a very safe place to build on it over time. And when I was at FGB, one of the things that we did, and I was very proud of, that we innovated on, is not just lip service about financial inclusion, but how do you get people to have starter accounts where they can get comfortable with the institutions and then build on that surplus, put that surplus in the bank over time, and there'll be no fees. So we did that. We had this starter account where you just need your ID and your TRN number. You can go to any bank now, because we pushed out first and then the other banks called us. BOJ pushed out and said we could do it, right? Because that's part of KYC, how we onboard, how we start a relationship with you. We just assess the risk. Now here's the kicker. To start that starter account, there's a cap. I think it was 250,000 Jamaican dollars you could have in that account at any one time. But guess what now? Having 200, if you get up to that 250 over time, when you're at 200,000, having that under your mattress versus having that in the bank, just from a security standpoint, based on how we live right now as a country, it is actually safer to have it in the bank. And you can find that product where you don't get charged all these fees just to hold the money. So that is one big thing for having it in an institution versus at home. Right. But the second thing is, when it comes to why banks and why you can bank on a bank, right? So savings are very important. And by the way, if you are saving at a good clip and you have even more and more surplus and you want to put it away for a real rainy day, a long-term kind of, whether it's retirement, or you have kids and you want to invest in their education longer term, maybe college, maybe, well, they really should pay for themselves, I think, but maybe high school, something, that is what we call investment. Now, investment different from savings. Savings,
Mariame, can I just ask you to pause 1 second, because I'm just getting a message from some of my viewers that we need to encourage all of them to share the live. Just go on and share the live with, not you, Mariame. They will share it. with their other friends on Facebook, and to let everybody know as well that the Connection Live can now be watched on YouTube. So we are all over the place, YouTube, Facebook. We now have a web page, a website. So every week when we do these lives, we can watch them simultaneously on these various platforms. So please, those of you who are on now, please share the live. Sorry to cut you, Mariam.
No problem, no problem. So hi again. So yes, so I was talking about the difference now between savings, which is very important, and all of us can save, no matter how little or a lot you make, no matter what your expense profile, you can get a little surplus. And it's about just building on that little bit over time. And I was sharing that it's better to have it at an institution versus at home, and there are products that don't charge you large fees. And then I just wanted to talk a little bit about investment and just make that distinction. So save and why savings are safe, and investments are also safe, but just make the distinctions. Investment is where you have a little bit more than a little surplus, and you want to now put that away for whether it be big spends you might have. Retirement is a big point. That's, when they talk about retirement, that is an investment in your life when you get to an older age. Now, investments you usually put away, and you don't really look at it too closely or too often. I want to make the distinction. Usain Bolt was an investment that he had, which with an investment house, which is called SSL, and that's regulated by the Financial Services Commission, FSC. Now, the banks that I was talking about, which we usually call deposit-taking institutions, the banks, building societies, VM, etc., those are regulated by the Bank of Jamaica. And the Bank of Jamaica has a very strict regime. So does FSC, where they go in and they do these site examinations ever so often. I enjoyed one of those. Yeah. And you have to come back and let them know that you've closed those gaps. So those things are extremely important. And one thing that the BOJ has put in place in the last 6 years since I was in the sector is the consumer protection framework, which is that if a bank does something, like say you're supposed to reverse a charge and the bank tell you 2 weeks, and then 2 weeks come and you don't hear nothing, or you're trying to get through to customer service to resolve a unique issue and you can't get through anywhere and it's just annoying, and I know what you mean. Or you have a dormant account that you're trying to bring current and you're getting a runaround. Any issue, you can write to the Bank of Jamaica, right? And then guess what happens now? The Bank of Jamaica write the head of the bank. Right to me, what I'm saying, right? Really? To who at that role, and that role now has to give it to the department, because the systems have to be set up. I think it's 45 days you have to respond to say you've closed out the issue. Otherwise, you're in breach as a bank. That is something that was put in place since 2016, since I joined as a CEO of First Global Bank, put in by the regulators to strengthen the consumer protection.
Put in by the FSC,
the Bank of Jamaica. It's put in by the Bank of Jamaica. Yes. Okay. And remember, and bank fees has always been, a topic of public interest. Sometimes it's at a crescendo, sometimes it dies down, but there is a genuine opportunity, I think, for us as banks to constantly improve how we respond to customers, how timely and how specific. Sometimes you just give the runaround and it's very frustrating. So yes, that was put in place and that exists right now. Because that's there, I'm just trying to make the case for why, as for savings, it is actually your institution where you're saving your money is heavily regulated. There are big fines, breaches, and they hold the board of directors, accountable as much as the management. So,
right,
when you're going on
let me see if I can understand this now.
Yes.
So there are a number of different financial institutions.
Yes.
You have the regular banks, like
you have the deposit-taking institutions,
right?
And then you have insurance, investments, and pension funds.
So the Financial Services Commission, which is different from the Bank of Jamaica today.
Yes.
They regulate those banks that are not your regular deposit taking.
Right. So they regulate what we call the non-deposit taking institution. So they're still taking your cash, but we don't call it a deposit. So they could be insurance companies. So we give money to the insurance company every month to pay our premium. So they're taking in cash, but they don't call it a deposit. So they regulate insurance companies. They regulate investment companies, investment firms. FSC, yeah, the Financial
Yeah.
Services
No,
Commission.
I'm talking about where does SSL fall into that?
Right. So SSL would be an investment house, and
Right.
they would have then, yes, been regulated by the Financial Services Commission.
Right.
So and then pension funds and so forth. So that falls into the non-deposit taking institution,
Right.
and so they've been pretty active as well. And if you're in breach, they will take action, in some cases even revoke a license. So those are the two entities. And so because you have regulation, it's okay to place the money. I mean, that is where it comes from. And unfortunately, this has happened. But what I would say is that the regulatory environment in Jamaica, when I look around the world and I look at the US as well, which I know well too, it is very strong. And what we really wanted to do is make sure we have enforcement, and we have had enforcement. Now, SSL is that's a whole kind of, I'm going to leave that alone. We're going to get to the bottom of that as a country, I believe.
Right.
But we have had enforcement. And that's usually where I think we fall down, Philip, where we have great laws, we have great minds, we have frameworks in place. But if you say to me, Mariam, but if FGB or another bank doesn't respond on time, or they don't have, they have a culture of non-compliance, what happens? And I can honestly tell you that you will suffer the consequences as a deposit-taking institution. I don't know as much about the FSC, but I know that they have taken action on other firms in the same period. So as Jamaican citizens, I'm comfortable leaving my money here. You should be comfortable too. And it's really just about now the diligence you do to determine which bank, which non-deposit taking institution, how do I get comfortable with which firm to go to?
Right. But so what you're saying is that we do have a pretty well-regulated market for financial services. Sometimes some things fall through the cracks, and perhaps that might be the situation here, because we're still not yet 100% on the facts of this matter.
Yeah, I'm not touching that at all.
Yes.
That's good.
And as a lawyer,
Yes.
I do have to be careful, because
I just don't know.
yeah, but we just don't know. But it's just that people are so emotional, largely again because of this.
So let me just say one thing, and then I saw a question about insurance. I do want to comment on that as well.
Yes.
There is for those of you who may work in financial institutions, whether it's deposit taking or non-deposit, or you have relatives who work there or whatever it might be. Here's the thing. I like regulated businesses, actually, because the rules are very clear, and I like following the rules, right?
Yes.
But what I would say is that one of the ways to look at, first of all, the consequences are very clear in this industry versus other industries. That is the financial services industry. And what it starts with is leadership. Look at leadership and culture. Leadership and culture is usually an enabler of these things happening, as much as it is, the person is horrible, and our systems are weak, etc. And so when you're looking at where to put your money from an investment standpoint, but also even from a savings standpoint, say, okay, do I know anybody else who's done business with them? So who's put their money with them? Do I know anybody else? And usually the answer is yes. That's probably why you're even considering the firm in the first place. The second thing is, can they tell me when they've gotten money out, how easy it was? Right? So when I go to the bank, can I find an ATM easily, or can I use a card at another bank's ATM easily? Do they charge me a fee? That kind of thing. What's the process of accessing my cash? That's on the deposit taking side. On the non-deposit taking side, for my investments, how do I know what the return has been? What's the reports that they send me? Do they send me in the mail, or can I get it on my phone? Or how easily do I get statements that show me movement of my portfolio over time from an investment standpoint? And that is some of the questions to ask. And the third thing I like to say is, how accessible is management? Coming out of Grace Kennedy, one of the things that Douglas Orane used to say is, and Don Webby, that this carried on the same tradition, is that there's no customer that cannot call up their office and they call that customer back. And feedback from a customer or complaint from a customer is excellent source of feedback. And I took the same point of view and feel strongly about that. When I learned things were suboptimal in a particular process, it's always because a customer managed to get to my office, and my assistants have always been so great about, yeah, man, Mariam love talk to everybody. and it's true, I really like talking to everybody. So I'd get to talk to the customer and hear them complain about what we're doing badly and learn where we could improve. So look at how easy it is to reach management, because that is when you'll also be able to, feel comfortable that, we're listening to you. The final thing I'll just say on this is, and I always say this whenever I speak on these types of things, is for the deposit taking institutions, hopefully all of your bank customers at least, what I would say is that you should be calling your bank every month to every 3 months just to check in. Hi, John Doe, how you doing? Yeah, everything is good. I just, things are anyway. I don't need a loan or anything. I'm just checking. All right, later. So that by the time you need a loan, if it's a 2 million unsecured loan and they say, boy, but I never hear from John for 5 years. Now I have to ask John for everything under the sun. The truth is, you've established a relationship with your banker and you deserve to, and they want you to. And if they don't want you to, you go to the bank that wants you to, and they're okay with you talking to your bank as much as you want. So that's very important, establishing this relationship. And nobody's business is too little bit or too heavy to have that one-on-one relationship with a banker. Now, just very quickly, because I see it as a question, why is it that the bank only insures a portion of your money? This is a hallmark of banking around the world. Generally. So what it is that all the banks, deposit-taking institutions, even in the US, they call it the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, FDIC insured banks. Right. These are, what they do is they ask the banks to buy insurance. In the event of a loss, depositors would be reimbursed up to a certain amount, right? So in Jamaica, it's $1.2 million. So every bank has that, because again, we're heavily regulated, and if we're in breach, we're cited and we have to correct breaches. So every bank has that. So it means if you have $2 million in the bank right now, kind of just sitting as savings, in the very unlikely event that your bank failed, which again is highly unlikely, but if it happened, you would get back $1.2 million right off the bat. Right? I mean, it may not happen in one day, but you will get it back because it's insured. So when they talk about SSL had some insurance, it's a similar amount. They had I heard numbers like $1 million from the minister, but every institution, they have some amount of insurance. And that's one of the benefits of the bank. Because remember, savings different from investments. Savings is to run your day-to-day life. It's just you have this surplus and you keep putting a little bit away until you have a real need, like a school fee payment, or going to the doctor's office for x-ray. Those things cost money. And so you dip into your savings to run your day-to-day life. So you can't afford to lose out on your savings. Whereas investments, you kind of say you have a little bit more than your surplus now and you want to roll the die to see if you can get even higher returns in a longer period, because you don't need that money now.
Right. All right. So just now there was a comment from Karina Cork, and now I see Beverly McHugh. Beverly is a regular listener.
Hi, Beverly.
Karina mentioned something just now, which is that there it is. Thing is very sensitive, but it's nice to know that light is being shed to the masses and those of us that are ignorant. Well, Karina, that's precisely why I do these programs, because even though it is very technical, we need to break it down so that the ordinary person who's affected, because everybody has to deal with the banking sector sometime or the other. And you need to feel assured that your money is safe. Dorothy Quest Buchanan, Dorothy is a favorite here. Everybody knows her husband, who is predecessor, Annie Buck. Thank you very much, Dorothy, Socrates Jr. Why come and pay your platform something a bit beautiful tonight? Wait, listen, man, stop disrespecting me here. So ask the ladies who come on just to see me, and they tell you otherwise. But you see, Mariam, you have beautified.
No problem.
But listen, thank you. There is Hi Taisha Deans. Thanks very much.
Yeah.
We are told now that the FSC, all of a sudden, is going to fold, and the Bank of Jamaica is now going to perform this very, I believe, arduous role to take on FSC, a specialized regulator, to now go into BOJ that used to regulate only those deposit-taking institutions. What do you make of that? And is that realistic?
Well, I mean, if they want to do it, they can do it. If, it can be done. From that standpoint, can it work? So I never thought about it till the minister announced it. I've since looked at it. For your listeners and viewers, it's called the Twin Peaks model. It's where you consolidate the regulatory role for the deposit-taking institutions, as we spoke about, and the non-deposit-taking institutions. Remember, the deposit-taking institutions, they're keeping our savings. They're giving us loans to make money, but they're ultimately holding our savings. So it's important for them to have a cushion, right? They're holding depositors that people can demand money at any time. Yeah. They lend a little bit of that out in loans, but it's important for them to have a cushion so that they can always honor our requests for our cash back, right? Yeah. Investments are usually locked up for a longer period of time. So it's, a little bit more risky, but higher returns, less need for the cushion, if you will. So I just, again, want to distinguish between the two business models. And that's why in many countries, you see two regulators, if you will, for these two entities. As Basel III is just I guess, I don't know what to call it. It's a type of regulation that's coming in force now. And Basel is the global supervisory function. Just, you could think of it as that. And after the financial crisis meltdown in 2009 across the world, well, the US, but it kind of, was felt around the world. They got together and came up with what could we do to prevent this type of a meltdown again. You always, as regulators, you say when you have that black swan event, that's the 1% probability event happening, you say, how can I prevent it again? And so they came up with this Basel III, which is, I think, being implemented now. Right. And for Basel III, just key things to note. I love banking. Okay, so interesting. So one is banks usually have to hold capital and put it away with the central bank for that, again, if a lot of depositors want cash on a given day, they have enough cash, right? So that means you're not earning anything in capital as a bank because you're managing the risk as well. Most businesses actually don't put capital away to earn nothing. Most businesses, they take capital and invest it so they can earn income and so forth, or they put it back into their business. The banks have to just hold the cash. Basel III is actually asking banks to hold more cash. So you usually hold the cash for liquidity purposes, and maybe you have credit risk, but now Basel III is saying market risk, operational risk. These are all, so you have to set the parameters and hold that cash. So to me, if there's a risk, you have enough cash to cover the risk, if you will. And what I mean by risk for the viewers is if something goes bad operationally, like you lose a customer, fleeces some money and you can't get it back. And it's 5 million right there. Well, you go into your operational cash reserve, if you will, and you covered it because you're already putting cash away. So because it's so different, that's why you've had both. What they've said is that two conditions have to be present for the Twin Peaks model to work, or to be effective, I should say. One is, well, banks don't really dominate the financial services sector. Now, to us, banks look like they do dominate, but I did hear figures that when you look at the assets under management,
billions and billions,
right, for DTIs, but even for the non-DTIs, that sector, remember now, insurance, investment, pension plans put together is quite a bit as well. So in that sense, I guess banks don't really dominate, but that's one condition. And the second condition is that the consumer protection framework has to be strong. And so what I thought was interesting about what the minister said is that the FSC is going to take on the role of that consumer, view, lens, advocate, protect. I don't know what the right words are, but focus on the consumer, the customer. Right. And so I suspect that might be why FSC will also have that lens as well. I haven't studied it too much. All I can say is that from a regulatory standpoint, I am very, very pleased with how the institutions, especially the Bank of Jamaica, because that's what I know the best. I know from an inflation targeting, which is what they have to go before Parliament and answer to, they may not have been meeting their objectives. And if you look around the world, most central banks haven't been meeting those objectives. But when you look at BOJ in terms of how they've worked with the sector, from allowing innovation while managing risk, being more responsive, pushing out first on CBDC, central bank digital currency, even before the banks like came in with the links and, GK, we have our GK1 app and all of that. They're very active. And in addition, having to retain talent, because a lot of talent we may grow up at BOG and say, well, let me jump off to private sector commercial banks, right? So I think from a Bank of Jamaica and the impact they've had over the last 5 years, certainly, well, we had Brian and then Richard Balsa stepped in now. I think they've been doing an excellent job, I must say. And then also when they do these on-site examinations, I experienced one and I was very impressed. And let me tell you, I mean, I had to get involved and have weekly meetings over a 3-month period to cure any gaps that they saw, right? And that is what they were doing across the industries, and they just cycle through every few years again and again. So that is very active. I cannot comment on the FSC because I'm not in that industry. I don't have experience in that industry as an operator. I'm a customer of that industry, but I'm not concerned. But remember, look at your statements when they're sending the statements and just make sure on your end, from an investment standpoint, things are looking the way they need to. The final thing I'll just say is a lot of banks, back to the banks again, because they're the ones that have our savings. We can't afford to lose our savings, right? But we cannot put it under that mattress because that surplus keeps growing and nobody, again, you don't want people to know about that surplus growing under your mattress. So a lot of the banks have mobile apps, right? And again, it's like until you get into the mobile app and use it, you probably have no idea what I'm talking about. But the moment you start using it, you say, what? I can't believe I did it any other way. Now, when you go into the mobile app, and you set the device as a trusted device, it's almost like you're just doing banking out of your hand. It's much easier than going onto your computer and logging into your online banking profile or account and doing transactions. I can send a wire from my mobile app much quicker than going in and logging into FGB and sending the wire. And the reason why I mention it is you can always check your mobile app once a day and see what your balance is. Does that balance change? Does it look right? You can do that easily now instead of waiting on statements or having to find a computer and go log in and put in your PIN and all of that. So I'd encourage folks to use the mobile app.
I just checked mine.
Good. So everybody and anybody can download it. Yes, exactly. And anybody can download the app. It's available for free to all of us.
Yeah. In fact, my app, the feature, the security feature is my face. So once I press on that, and it does a face ID, so nobody can get into my system. But boy, Mariame, we could be here until next week, And what is so admirable, and you've said it, is that you are passionate about banking. Some of us are passionate about politics. Some of us are passionate. Lately, I'm passionate about the law, and I'm celebrating today because this has been my best week ever. I said it last week, but for those who heard me last week, the money come this week. So it has been my best week ever, and I'm so happy and proud. But I know you want to say something else.
No. I was just going to say the reason why I'm passionate about banking, though, is not the business model of banking. Is because I've seen the impact that banks can have on our everyday lives. Right. And one of the things that distressed me the most when I joined the sector is to see the frustration that we were causing in society broadly, just from not so great customer service. And when I got onto the inside, what I realized, I'll just end with this fun fact or kind of a, not secret, but just an observation. The people who work in banks, whenever a customer calls in, I've found on average, and they're very upset, the first instinct that the team member does is they go and solve the problem. And if they have to go to different departments and departments not responding on time, they're still trying and they're solving the problem. They haven't responded to the customer yet to say, got you, I'll be back, and go solve the problem. So by the time you come back to the customer now and it doesn't work, you're like, hold on, is 3 days ago I wrote to you and you come back and tell me the problem not solved? It's not going to work. And every time I get involved and I talk to a team member, that's what's happening. It's not that people are sitting back. It's like they're so like, the problem, let's go solve it. And so that's always been a thing, which is up the communication with our customers. Tell them up front, I heard you. I got the email. I got the call. I have it written on my Outlook calendar to call you tomorrow or 2 days from now to give you an update, even if I don't have an answer. So if I could just say to the Jamaican public, Many of the banks, we have our family members, friends, relatives working in these institutions. They have the opportunity to have a big impact on just our lives in Jamaica. They can either create a lot of anxiety or not. And we had the power, the banks on the banking side, to try and bring down the anxiety. And what we found when we were trying to figure out the answer, a lot of it lay with the systems. And so I'll leave it there, which is that we're constantly trying to improve on things, but please continue to give the sector a chance, because it helps us, it empowers us as individuals. I'm now toggling to the citizen. I'm a citizen as an individual, and I like to have my savings somewhere where I can hold people accountable if they lose it, and they also can give me a little return. And then I go to my investment house because I have a little more than my surplus, and so I need to get more return, and I don't need to touch it, so I need it to be out of sight. But I need to get those monthly statements, which I do read my monthly statements. So I'll just leave it there.
Well, boy, I tell you, you make this thing sound so positive and even sexy. Somebody says you are so well poised and so passionate.
Oh, thank you.
I mentioned earlier we could go on forever. But let me just try to summarize, because you have been very careful not to delve into the most recent situation, and we appreciate that. And we honor you for that sensitivity. But the overwhelming question as to, is my money safe in the bank? I think you have addressed it, and you have assured us that we do have stringent regulations and a regulatory framework that will protect us, whether the money is in a deposit-taking institution or in non-deposit institution, and that we really ought not to keep our money under the mattress. There's a lot more we're going to talk about. I wonder, can you accept an invitation to return some other time? Can you?
Yeah, man, of course. No problem. That's fine. No problem. No problem.
Your husband came once and never come back. So I'm happy that we will be able to welcome you a second time. We normally go on for half an hour, but we have strayed well over that time, because the discussion has been so fruitful and positive. And I want to thank you very, very much, Mariame, for tremendous insights that you provided to me and to the viewers today. And I want to say to them, we return as usual next week, Friday. We are going to be in the month of February. I can't believe it. We finished January already. I just had my birthday party the other day. By the way, for those who costed me, it was a surprise birthday party. I want to thank those who organized it and those who attended. It was fun. We're going back to Port Royal next year. That time we can take the 2,000 people who want to come. All right. Thanks again, Mariame.
Thank you so much for having me. Thanks,
get better fully from the flu, and love you very much. Thanks to the viewers. We await your comments. Have a great weekend. Thanks a lot.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.